If you have issues closing out games when you have a lead, or troubles finding windows of opportunity when you are behind, then this video is for you. I will be talking from an AD carry perspective, but these tips are applicable to all roles, and it's easier to apply them in other roles. AD carries have the least agency in the game, so anyone playing top, jungle and mid should find these very easy to apply. This game is very simple when you break it down into phases. The game already gives you 3 of them naturally: the early game, mid game and late game. We are going to add 2 more phases to the game. One is called the pre-game phase and the other is called the transition phase. And the order of them should be like this. I recommend watching the entire thing for maximum understanding of these points, but if you would like to skip, there are timestamps in the comments below. Pre-game phase is the most important for me, because that tells me exactly what's going to happen in any given game. I have a lot of experience playing different roles and champions, and one of my main strengths as a player is understanding champion matchups. Assuming that every player in the game can play decently, not perfect, decently, for the first 5 minutes, it paints a very clear picture if the game is winnable or not. If the game looks winnable, then we have easy steps to follow, and if it's looking bad, we need to look for mistakes in the enemy team. This is what I do every game in Champion Select and Loading Screen. I don't stream as of now because I doubt people would be interested, and I don't always record, and most of the time I just do this quietly in my head. But recently I've been talking into a headset mic and just giving out my thoughts before a game. This guy is hovering Taric, which I was about to say. I don't see anyone playing Taric. And immediately, I was about to say, Shen counters all in pretty hard, and Thresh is also very good at countering all in. So our lane matchup here, unless they have a Draven, a Lucian, a Samira, we should be looking to play a bit slower. They pick Aphelios here, so he already has a lot of protection. And they have Twisted Fate. So the enemy team are going to play around bot lane a lot, it seems like. And we have a scaling top laner. And they dodge. Fuck man, this was a perfect Sivir game. Some common things to think about in the pre-game is: where should the enemy jungler play? What is their best winning condition? What is the best approach to your own laning phase? And what can we pick that gives us the best chance of winning? Picking the best champion in the game that is performing the best currently is not always a very clear thing to do. If we can keep these points honest and not overplay our hand in every game, we are always in a good spot to win the early game. Now in the early game itself, there are only 2 things that you should play for. You either establish a lead or you aim to go even. If I'm facing a Draven Alistar lane when I'm playing Jinx Soraka, my aim should be to go even. If I play for the lead and they counter me, I will lose, assuming that nobody makes mistakes. So if I'm ever behind, then I know that it is my own fault for not sticking to the plan. I will not blame the jungler or the mid laner or the support in most cases if I am ever behind. I know what the plan was heading into the game. I need to stick to that plan, even if the support is doing something else. If we both reach the transition phase and I am even against a much stronger champion in the early game, that means I'm winning. A couple of things to keep notice of in the early game that dictates how the lane is playing out is: where is the jungler starting? Where will they be in 3 minutes? What am I doing with this wave? Am I last hitting? Am I hard pushing? Am I letting it crash into me? Etc. Who has push control at the moment? What is their posture telling me? Are they too aggressive or defensive? If they're too aggressive, is the jungler nearby? If they are overly defensive, the jungler must be topside. Can I cheat to recall here, as in crashing 2 waves and then recall and get back to the lane before the enemy team can crash their own wave? Now I've spent my gold and I'm back in the lane, and the enemy team still hasn't recalled. Assuming that I can think about these things and I play the best choice with the information that I have, I should come out of the early game with a lead. At the very least, I should be even. This takes time to learn, and you only learn by playing more champions and playing more games. It's just that simple. Then we have the transition phase. Now that the early game is over, usually around 14 minutes when tower plates are falling off, we need to ask ourselves, where do we go? As an AD carry, most of the time, you want to be in the mid lane because that's the safest, but that's not always possible. If we have a dashless, weak mid lane champion that cannot side lane, like Vel'Koz or Xerath, we can't put them in the side lane because they will get ganked and lose hard, and it's an opening for the enemy team to get back into the game. If that's the case, we should be in the side lane, even as an AD carry. We pick the side lane closest to our team's next objective so we can be there if a fight breaks out. The hardest part in the transition phase is to find farm. In the laning phase, the farm comes to you. In the mid-game transition, you must find the farm. There is no such thing as I am a mid laner, so all mid farm is mine. That is a very low elo thing to say, and players who play like this will always be bad at the game. Lane assignments are extremely important, and one of the key opportunities when you are behind is to look for someone on the enemy team that is out of position and kill them. That's how you come back into the game, even with a big gold deficit. You might think they're making a mistake by just being in a lane, but they're playing incorrect lane assignments. Now from the transition we head into the mid game, and mid game is the hardest phase in the game for many, because people are everywhere. People are split pushing, dragon is coming up, do we trade dragon for baron, what wave should we push, and blah blah blah. There is a lot to think about, but in my view, there are only two things you should focus on in the mid game: getting down every tier 1 and tier 2 tower and lighting up the map with wards, especially the side of the map that you plan on playing for. We secure every tower because it gives us a lot of gold, and without towers, the enemy can't walk up to you risk-free. We then use the fact that we see their actions, we make a pick, we kill someone, and then we focus on the bigger objectives like dragon and baron. We don't always fight 5 versus 5 because there's a lot of variables in a big team fight that play out all at once, and things can go very wrong easily. It's very easy to follow pro players because of this understanding. Nothing big happens in pro games. They just trade with each other, gain very small incremental leads, they use that lead for vision, they kill someone who walks out too far, they do baron, and they end the game. Every single time. Unless you are playing in the LPL, it's very rare to see multiple 5 versus 5 team fights in the same game over and over again. And this you can apply into your own game. Keep it easy. Find the correct lane assignment in the mid game. Push down the towers when you are ahead, and look to split up the enemy team when you are behind and kill someone that is out of position. Play around with your vision first, and then make the plays with the information that you have. If you play a decent mid game, you should now be in the late game. And for me, the late game is the easiest part of the game, because it only takes one mistake from the enemy team for you to end the game. At this point, you should be strong enough to do baron in around 10 to 15 seconds, and you should be strong enough to kill the enemy team if they are not ready for a big team fight and out of position. In the late game, a lot of emphasis will be put on the side lanes, and we need to keep these waves pushing towards the enemy team. A big mistake in lower elo, and even in high elo, is that a lot of the fighting takes place in the mid lane, and both side lanes are neglected. A lot of times, even if you win the big team fight in the late game, you won't be able to end the game simply because the waves are working against you and not with you. When we are looking to end the game from a neutral perspective, we never want to push as 5 into the enemy base and fight. We only do that with a massive gold advantage, or if the enemy team has dead team members. Instead, we want to create pressure in every lane all at once, so the enemy team can't respond. The lane assignments can be different, but a very popular one is called 1-3-1. Solo laners take a side lane each, and jungler, AD carry and support are in the mid lane. With every wave pushing, the enemy team cannot respond when they are behind. Your job is not to fight, It's to split up the enemy team into an impossible scenario where they can't do anything about 3 lanes pushing at once. You wait for them to lose their patience and then you engage when you see an opening. Most of the time, when they lose patience, they will randomly engage on one of the lanes and then you either push the remaining 2 or you group up on them, collapse on them and fight. Every game can be finished like this. And most of the time, when you throw away a game in the late game, it's because people are not doing what they are supposed to be doing at this phase of the game. Stop playing for the kills and start playing for the minion waves. Create pressure on the enemy team and do something with that pressure. Because if you don't do anything when you push these waves in, then all you are doing is sending a massive amount of golden XP to the enemy team at once. And they will catch up very quickly and turn the game around if you make a mistake. These tips that I've given out in this video are very easy to apply. Even when you don't know what to do, the only thing you need to think about is what would the enemy team like me to do, and then avoid that one thing. It's just as simple as that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you would like to see more game breakdowns like this, consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.